7 years earlier, I stood among the grapevines of our family's oldest vineyard, watching the sunrise paint the valley in shades of gold. At 23, fresh out of business school with honors, I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was memorizing every detail of what would soon no longer be mine. "There you are, Alexander," my father's voice carried across the morning air, tinged with disappointment. Hiding in the vines again instead of learning the real business. I turned to face William Harrison Sr., founder of Harrison Valley Wines, and my father. He stood in his usual pose, expensive suit, arms crossed, frowning at what he saw as his greatest disappointment. "I was checking the Cabernet vines," I replied. "The new trellis system is showing promising results." "Leave that to the field workers," he waved dismissively. "Your brother William is waiting in the boardroom. Time you learned what real wine business is about." I followed him silently, my hand brushing against the grape leaves as we walked. What my father never understood was that I'd been learning the real business since I was 12, not in the boardroom, but here among the vines, from the workers who actually made our wine possible. The boardroom was all mahogany and leather, dominated by my older brother William's booming voice. At 32, he was everything our father wanted. Aggressive, flashy, focused solely on profit margins and expansion.
"There's our little consultant."
William laughed as I entered. "Done playing farmer?" Our sister Victoria smirked from her seat, perfectly manicured nails, tapping on her tablet. "Someone has to check on the help, I suppose." I took my usual seat at the far end of the table, pulling out my notebook. For the next 2 hours, I listened as William outlined his vision for Harrison Valley Wine's aggressive expansion, cutting unnecessary costs like worker benefits, shifting to mass production methods. "And that's how we'll triple profits in 5 years, he concluded triumphantly. Our father beamed. "Brilliant, son. This is why you're taking over as CEO next month." I couldn't stay quiet. "Those methods will destroy our wine quality. The workers who've been with us for generations will leave. We'll lose everything that makes Harrison wines special." The room fell silent before William burst out laughing. "Listen to the consultant, worried about the field workers again." "Alexander," my father sighed, "this is exactly why the board agreed William should take over. You don't understand business. Your brother has an MBA from Wharton." "So do I," I reminded him. "With honors." "Yes, but you waste it talking about soil composition and fermentation techniques. This is a business, not a farming cooperative." I stood up slowly, then I quit. Victoria nearly dropped her tablet. "What?" I quit. "I'll find my own path." My father's face reddened. "Don't be dramatic. Where will you go? What will you do?" "I've been offered a consulting position with Blackstone Agricultural Group. I start next week." William snorted. "A consulting job. Have fun with your spreadsheets while we run a real business." I walked out of that boardroom with a plan already forming. What they didn't know was that Blackstone wasn't just any consulting firm. They specialized in agricultural acquisitions, and had been watching Harrison Valley Wine's mismanagement with great interest. Over the next 7 years, I worked silently and strategically. While William implemented his brilliant vision, I watched our family's wine quality plummet. Premium restaurants dropped our labels, long-time workers quit, but the profit margins looked good on paper, and that's all my father cared about. Meanwhile, I learned everything about the wine business from the ground up. I worked with small vineyards, studied sustainable practices, built relationships with workers and suppliers. Most importantly, I saved every penny and built connections with investors who shared my vision. Through a series of holding companies, I began acquiring vineyards in the valley. First, the struggling ones William's policies had hurt. Then the older family operations looking to retire but worried about corporate takeovers. I kept the original names, retained the workers, and improved conditions. Wine quality soared. I lived modestly in a small apartment, drove an old car, and played the role of the failed son, who'd settled for a consulting job. Every time I visited home, I endured their condescension. "Still pushing papers?" William would ask at family dinners. "Someone has to," I'd reply, while signing deals for another vineyard acquisition under the table. Victoria was worse. "You know there's still time to come back. You could work under William, learn how real business works." I'd just smile and sip my wine. usually from one of my own vineyards, though they never knew. By the time my father called this family meeting, I owned 80% of the valley's vineyards, through various holding companies. Harrison Valley Wines was now surrounded by my properties, their quality grapes supply dwindling, as contracts mysteriously went to other buyers. William's brilliant plan was failing. Wine quality had dropped so much that major distributors were canceling contracts. The workers who knew how to make premium wines had all left, most now worked for my vineyards. Harrison Valley Wines was hemorrhaging money, but William kept up appearances. I knew why father had called this meeting. They needed the other vineyard owners to save them. They needed access to quality grapes and experienced workers. Hey, William, the workers. They thought they could bully or buy out the small local vineyards that now controlled the valley. Those small local vineyards that I owned. I sat in my usual spot at the end of the table, briefcase by my side, as father began the meeting. Harrison Valley Wines has been the premier vintner in this valley for 3 generations, he announced gravely. But times are changing. These small operations are threatening our legacy. William nodded importantly. Which is why we're announcing a major acquisition initiative. We'll be taking over these family vineyards, by force if necessary. We control distribution. We control the market. Victoria tapped on her tablet. I've already drafted the letters to inform them. Accept our offers, or we'll crush them. And this, father smiled, is why William will now take complete control of all Harrison wine operations. Alexander, you can keep your consulting job, of course. Someone needs to manage the paperwork once we acquire these properties. They all laughed. I opened my briefcase. Actually, I said quietly, I have some letters of my own. The thick folder landed on the table with a satisfying thud. What's this? William frowned, reaching for it. Ownership documents, I replied. For every vineyard in the valley you plan to acquire, plus contracts with every major wine distributor in the country. Father's face reddened. What are you talking about? I stood up slowly, enjoying the moment I'd waited 7 years for. Blackstone Agricultural Group wasn't just a consulting firm. We specialize in agricultural acquisitions. Over the past 7 years, I've personally acquired every vineyard in this valley, except this one. And now, Harrison Valley Wines needs me to survive. William's face had gone pale as he flipped through the documents. This is impossible. These vineyards are owned by different companies. Shell companies, I corrected. All controlled by my holding corporation, Phoenix Valley Vintners. Victoria grabbed the papers. These contracts, all our distributors, have already signed with my vineyards, I finished. Quality matters, it seems. You can't do this, father sputtered. We're family. Funny, I replied. That didn't matter when you were planning to destroy other families' vineyards. The same families who taught me everything about wine, while you sat in this boardroom. I walked to the window, looking out over the valley I now owned. Things are going to change. Harrison Valley Wines will return to quality production. The workers will get fair treatment and benefits. And the board meets tomorrow to vote on new leadership. The board works for me, William shouted. The board works for the majority shareholder, I corrected. Which, as of this morning, is Phoenix Valley Vintners. Your mismanagement and debts forced quite a few shareholders to sell. I picked up my briefcase and headed for the door, pausing to look back at their shocked faces. I learned business in the vineyards, not the boardroom. Meetings tomorrow at 9 a.m. Don't be late. The door clicked shut behind me as I walked out into my valley. Through the boardroom windows, I could see them frantically flipping through documents, making calls, realizing that the son they'd dismissed had outmaneuvered them completely. I smiled, breathing in the familiar scent of grapes ripening in the sun. The real work was just beginning. I had a legacy to rebuild, workers to take care of, and premium wines to produce. But first, I had a board meeting to prepare for. And somewhere in my wine cellar, a very special bottle of Harrison Valley wines from better days was waiting to be opened. Sometimes revenge is best served with a perfectly aged Cabernet. The next morning, I arrived at Harrison Valley Wines headquarters an hour early. The security guard, Manuel, who had watched me grow up among these vines, gave me a knowing smile. Good morning, Mr. Alexander. The old office is ready, just as you asked. I nodded, patting his shoulder as I passed. Thank you, Manuel, and please reinstate Maria as head of housekeeping. She never should have been let go. Si, senor, she will be very happy. My father's soon-to-be my office still smelled of expensive leather and oak. I set my briefcase down on the massive desk and walked to the window wall. The sun was just beginning to peek over the eastern vineyards, casting long shadows across the rows of vines. 7 years of careful planning had led to this moment. The door opened behind me. I thought I'd find you here early. Marcus Chen, my attorney and oldest friend from business school, entered carrying 2 coffee cups. He handed me one and settled into a leather chair. The board members are all confirmed, he reported. 17 out of 20 will attend in person, 3 by video conference. The votes are secured. I sipped my coffee, still watching the sunrise. William's been making calls all night, offering bribes, threats, anything to keep control. Marcus chuckled. Too late. The documentation is ironclad. Phoenix Valley Vintners owns 52% of Harrison Valley Wine's shares as of yesterday. The board has no choice but to recognize the new majority shareholder. And the workers, word has spread. The old crews are already calling, wanting to come back. Your reputation for fair treatment at the other vineyards is well known. I turned from the window. Have HR prepare reinstatement packages. Priority to those William fired for cost-cutting. Full benefits, back pay for unfair termination. Already done. Marcus checked his watch. They're starting to arrive, ready to face the family. I straightened my tie. Been ready for 7 years. The Harrison Valley Wines boardroom was tense when I entered at exactly 9 a.m. William sat in our father's usual chair, face flushed with anger. Victoria perched beside him, tapping furiously on her phone. Our father stood by the window, shoulders rigid. The board members, mostly old family friends and business partners, looked uncomfortable. They'd watched William's mismanagement damage a century-old wine legacy, but had been powerless to stop it, until now. Good morning, I said calmly, taking my seat at the opposite end of the table. Marcus sat beside me, opening his laptop. William leaned forward. This is ridiculous. You can't just walk in and take over. We'll fight this in court. Marcus spoke up. All acquisitions were legal and properly documented. Phoenix Valley Vintners' purchase of Harrison Valley Wine's shares followed all SEC regulations. Mr. Alexander, Harrison now controls 52% of voting shares. This is betrayal. Victoria snapped. Your own family. I met her gaze steadily. Like betraying the workers who built this company. The families who trusted us to maintain quality and tradition. Business requires tough decisions, William argued. Our profit margins have dropped 60% in real terms, I interrupted, nodding to Marcus. He distributed folders to each board member. These reports show the true state of Harrison Valley Wines under current management. Declining quality, lost contracts, exodus of skilled workers, and devalued brand reputation. The board members began reading, their expressions growing grave. William's face reddened further as whispers filled the room. Page 3 shows our market position 7 years ago, I continued. Page 4 shows it today. Page 5 projects total collapse within 2 years if current practices continue. These numbers, Mr. Patterson, our oldest board member, looked up sharply. William, you reported completely different figures last quarter. Creative accounting, Marcus explained. We've highlighted the discrepancies in Appendix B. My father finally turned from the window. What do you want, Alexander? What I've always wanted. To restore Harrison Valley Wines to its rightful place. Quality over quantity. Respect for workers and traditions. A legacy worth preserving. I stood, addressing the board. You've all received my proposed restructuring plan. It involves immediate quality control reforms, worker reinstatement with improved benefits, and sustainable farming practices across all properties. The cost, Williams started to object, will be offset by the premium pricing our restored reputation will command, I finished. The distribution contracts, I've secured guarantee it. We return to quality, or we die as just another mass market label. Mr. Patterson nodded slowly. I move we vote on the change in leadership. Seconded came multiple voices. William shot to his feet. This is my company. Father, do something. Our father looked at me for a long moment. I saw something shift in his eyes. Recognition, perhaps, of the business acumen he'd dismissed for so long. The motion has been made and seconded, he said quietly, taking his seat. Proceed with the vote. The next few minutes were a formality. The vote was unanimous, even from the video conference participants. William stormed out before it was finished, Victoria hurrying after him. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Patterson said, extending his hand. Welcome home. The board filed out, leaving me alone with our father. He stood slowly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. You learned the business from the ground up, he said finally. While we sat in this room making charts and projections, you were out there learning what really mattered. Yes, the workers trust you. The other vintners respect you. He managed a small smile. You're a better businessman than I ever was. I had a good foundation, I replied, before we lost sight of what mattered. He nodded, moving toward the door. Fix what we broke, son. Bring back the Harrison name we used to be proud of. That's the plan. Will you help? He paused. You're the chairman now. But if you need advice about the old ways, the things we did right in the beginning, I'll be around. After he left, I sat in the chairman's seat, feeling its weight. Marcus returned with more coffee and a stack of papers requiring immediate attention. The prodigal son returns in triumph, he observed. Want me to start the paperwork to remove William and Victoria from their positions? I shook my head. No, let them stay if they want to learn. Real business this time, starting in the vineyards, like I did, and if they refuse, then they can sell their shares and go. This isn't about revenge, it's about restoration. Marcus nodded, understanding. Speaking of restoration, Maria's already back as head of housekeeping, word spreading fast. The old crew chiefs are gathering at the main vineyard. I stood straightening my jacket. Then that's where I need to be. The boardroom can wait. First day as chairman should be spent with the people who actually make our wines great. Just like old times. Marcus smiled. Better than old times, I replied, heading for the door. Now we do it right. The morning sun was high now, warming the valley. As I drove toward the main vineyard, I passed William's Ferrari parked haphazardly by the gate. He stood among the vines, looking lost still in his expensive suit. I pulled over. Want to learn about real wine business? I'm heading to meet the crew chiefs. He stared at me for a long moment, pride warring with reality. Finally his shoulders slumped slightly. I never understood what you saw out here. Come find out. Start over. Do it right this time. Another long pause. Then he nodded, just once. Lead the way, Chairman. Together we walked into the vineyard, toward the gathered workers who represented our true legacy. It was time to rebuild, one vine at a time. 3 months after the board meeting, I sat in my office reviewing the first quarter results under new management. The early numbers were promising, but we had a long road ahead. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Come in. Victoria entered, looking different from her usual polished self. She wore practical clothes and her hands showed signs of actual work. The soil analysis reports you wanted, she said, placing a folder on my desk. The eastern slopes show better mineral content than we thought. I raised an eyebrow. You did these yourself? Carlos taught me. She shrugged. Turns out soil chemistry is more interesting than social media management. The past 3 months had brought unexpected changes. After William's decision to learn the business properly, Victoria had surprised everyone by asking to join the vineyard management program. Now the sister who once mocked my dirt obsession was becoming our best soil analyst. How's William doing with the workers? I asked, scanning the detailed reports. Better. He actually listened to Miguel's suggestions about the new irrigation system, though he still overdresses for field work. I smiled. Some things change slowly. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window we could see our father's car arriving, followed by several unfamiliar vehicles. The Japanese delegation, Victoria reminded me. The potential distribution deal for Asia. I nodded. standing. Let's see if William's diplomatic skills have improved since he stopped trying to bully everyone. We headed to the main tasting room where William was already greeting our guests. He traded his aggressive sales pitch for a more respectful approach, and it showed in the visitors' relaxed demeanor. Alexander, our father called, making introductions. Mr. Tanaka's team has toured 3 vineyards today. They're quite impressed with the regenerative farming methods. Mr. Tanaka, a distinguished man in his 60s, bowed slightly. Most impressive is the harmony between modern techniques and traditional respect for the land. Your workers speak of the vineyards with pride. The land and the people are our greatest assets. I replied. Please, join us for a special tasting. Victoria has selected wines that showcase our heritage and our future. As Victoria led the presentation, I watched our father's expression. He'd been spending more time in the vineyards lately, reconnecting with the workers who remembered when Harrison wines first became great. The tasting proceeded smoothly until William, in a moment of old habits, tried to push for an immediate contract signing. Brother, I interrupted quietly. Mr. Tanaka hasn't visited the western slopes yet. Perhaps tomorrow morning when the sun shows the terroir to best advantage. William caught himself, nodded. Of course, my apologies for rushing. This enthusiasm, it's different when you truly believe in what you're offering. Mr. Tanaka smiled approvingly. Tomorrow will be perfect. Tonight we would be honored to hear more about your family's journey in winemaking. Over dinner in the vineyard's restored entertaining room, our father surprised everyone by telling stories of his own early days learning from his father. We lost our way, he admitted, swirling his wine thoughtfully. Forgot that great wine is born in the soil and raised by dedicated hands. My youngest son remembered what I forgot. Later that evening, after our guests departed, the family lingered over the remains of a vintage bottle from our grandfather's time. The Tanaka deal will open huge markets, William mused. But this time we'll grow properly, sustainably. Victoria added, the soil restoration program is already showing results. Next year's vintage could be our best in a decade. If we stay true to the principles that matter, I reminded them. Quality over quantity. Respect for the land and people. Our father raised his glass. To remembering who we are and to the son who helped us remember. The moment was interrupted by Manuel, our security chief, rushing in. Senor Alexander. The night crew spotted fires in the north vineyard. We all raced to the window. Orange flames flickered among our oldest vines, spreading in the evening wind. Get all available workers, I ordered. Call the fire department. William, already coordinating with the other vineyard crews, he answered, phone to his ear. Victoria checked the irrigation systems. We might be able to use them to help control the spread. She was gone before I finished speaking. Our father grabbed my arm. Those vines, they're over 60 years old. We'll save them, I promised, though my heart clenched at the sight of flames threatening our heritage. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Workers arrived from all over the valley, forming bucket brigades. The fire department brought their specialized vineyard equipment. William coordinated teams like a general, while Victoria's knowledge of the irrigation systems proved crucial. I worked alongside everyone else, fighting to save each vine. Through the smoke and chaos, I saw our father doing the same, his expensive suit ruined as he hauled water with workers young enough to be his grandchildren. By midnight we'd contained the fire. The damage was serious but limited to a small section. As we gathered to assess the situation, Miguel, our oldest worker, approached. It was sabotage, he said grimly. We found accelerant containers. And this. He handed me a crumpled note. Accept the buyout offer or lose everything. I read aloud. Signed, a concerned competitor. William's face darkened. Fuller Wines, they tried to buy us last month. They thought we were still weak. Victoria added, when we refused their offer, our father straightened his smoke-stained jacket. In the old days we protected each other in this valley. No vintner would dare. We still protect each other, I interrupted. Look around. Every vineyard in the valley had sent workers to help. Equipment from a dozen wineries stood ready. Even now, neighbors were arriving with food and supplies for the cleanup crews. The valley stands together, Miguel nodded. We are stronger than their threats. Dawn found us still working, saving what we could, planning restoration. The Japanese delegation arrived to find owners and workers alike, covered in soot, united in purpose. Mr. Tanaka surveyed the scene, then bowed deeply. Now we see the true spirit of Harrison Valley Wines. We would be honored to partner with such a family. As the sun rose over our damaged but undefeated vineyard, I looked at my family. Tired, dirty, but together in a way we hadn't been in years. William was already sketching restoration plans with the workers. Victoria was cataloging each affected vine for her soil analysis. Our father stood among his old friends from neighboring vineyards, remembering better ways of doing business. The message had backfired. Instead of destroying us, the attack had proven what I'd always known. Wine isn't made in boardrooms or by corporate strategies. It's made by people who love the land and stand together when it matters. We'll replant, I announced, every lost vine, and the new vintage will be called Phoenix. Rising stronger from the flames, the workers cheered, my family smiled, and somewhere I knew our grandfather was nodding in approval. 1 year later, the morning sun painted the valley golden, as our entire family gathered for the harvest of our Phoenix vintage. The vines that had nearly been destroyed now stood strong, heavy with perfect grapes. I watched William showing his son, my 5-year-old nephew, how to check grape ripeness the traditional way. Not by machines, Tommy. Feel them, smell them. The vine tells you when it's time. Victoria moved among the workers with her tablet, but it wasn't for social media anymore. She'd developed an award-winning system, combining traditional wisdom with modern soil science. Other vineyards were now asking to implement her methods. The lab results are exceptional, she announced, joining me. Best sugar acid balance we've seen in 15 years. Our father appeared, carrying an old wooden box I recognized from my childhood. I've been saving this, he said, setting it down carefully. Inside lay 6 bottles of Harrison wine from 1962, our grandfather's legendary vintage. The one that had first put our valley on the world wine map. I thought these were all gone, I said softly. I kept them for the right moment. He lifted one gently. Today we'll open one. When we bottle the Phoenix vintage, we'll open another. The rest will wait for future generations to remember this year. The workers gathered as word spread. Miguel, now our head of vineyard operations, brought glasses, not fancy crystal, but the sturdy wine tasters used in the field. William's corporate friends had mocked our response to the arson attack. Instead of lawsuits and revenge, we'd invited every vineyard in the valley to share in the Phoenix project. Ancient farming techniques merged with innovative methods. Workers exchanged knowledge freely. The valley became one extended family again. Fuller Wines had gone bankrupt, trying to compete, their cutthroat tactics rejected by distributors who valued relationships over rapid growth. Our father opened the 1962 bottle with reverence. The wine caught the morning light like liquid amber. To the Phoenix vintage, he said, and to all who made it possible. The wine was magnificent, complex, subtle, alive with history. I watched Tommy's face scrunch up at his tiny permitted sip, and everyone laughed. One day you'll understand, pequeño, Miguel told him. Good wine is like family, it takes time, patience and love to make it right. As the harvest began, I saw our father take his grandson's hand. Come Tommy, let me show you how your great-grandfather taught me to pick grapes. Victoria nudged me. The prodigal son's revolution is complete. Though I still can't believe you let me keep my job after how I treated you. Family gives second chances, I replied, when they're earned. William joined us, grape juice already staining his formerly pristine cuffs. The Japanese distributors called. Advance orders for the Phoenix vintage are unprecedented. Because it's more than wine, I said. It's a story of family, tradition, and resurrection. Speaking of which, I nodded toward the eastern ridge, where construction had just finished on our new wine education center. Local students would learn both traditional and modern techniques. The valley's legacy would continue. Your grandfather would be proud, Miguel said, appearing beside us. You brought back his way of thinking. Wine is not for getting rich quick. Wine is for making life richer, slowly. The morning wore on. 3 generations of Harrisons worked beside families who had tended these vines for just as long. The grapes filled basket after basket, each one promising something special. As the sun reached its peak, I climbed to my favorite spot overlooking the valley. The view had changed, organic gardens between the vines, solar panels on the workers' new housing, the education center gleaming in the distance. But the soul of the place remained eternal. My father joined me, 2 glasses of the 1962 in hand. You know, he said, sometimes the best business lessons aren't learned in boardrooms. They're learned in the soil, I finished, accepting the glass. Your grandfather tried to teach me that. I forgot. But you, he smiled, you learned it on your own. Below us, William was covered in grape juice, laughing with the workers. Victoria was teaching young interns about soil composition. Tommy ran between the vines, already in love with the family legacy he'd one day inherit. The Phoenix vintage isn't just about the fire, is it? My father asked. No, I replied. It's about our family rising from the ashes of what we'd become, remembering who we really are. We raised our glasses to the valley, to the future and to the past that had taught us the most valuable lesson of all. True success grows best in the soil of tradition, watered by wisdom, and harvested with respect. The end.